The Dominion had ruled the Orion arm of the galaxy for more than 300 years. Their ships were massive. Their weapons were powerful. Their armies were endless. Every species that lived within their borders paid tribute to them, giving up 40% of everything they made just to stay alive. Those who refused were destroyed without mercy. High Chancellor was the leader of the Dominion. He was a tall creature covered in dark green scales, with yellow eyes that seemed to look right through anyone who stood before him. His throne room was made of black stone, and the walls were covered with trophies from conquered worlds. Skulls of defeated leaders, flags of destroyed nations, weapons taken from those who had dared to fight back. Had ruled for 60 years, and in that time he had crushed more than a dozen rebellions. He enjoyed his work. He liked watching weaker species beg for mercy. He liked the fear in their eyes when his fleet appeared above their worlds. On this particular day was bored. The council meeting had been routine. Tribute payments were on schedule. No species was causing trouble. Everything was running smoothly, which meant there was nothing interesting to do. Then his military advisor, Admiral, entered the throne room with news. "High Chancellor," said, bowing low, "the humans have requested membership in the Galactic Council." Looked up from his data pad. The humans, those primitives from the Sol system. "Yes, High Chancellor. They have sent an ambassador to present their case." Laughed. It was a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. "Bring her in. I could use some entertainment." The doors opened and a human woman walked into the throne room. She was small by standards, barely reaching chest. Her hair was silver, pulled back in a simple style. She wore plain gray clothes with no decorations or jewelry. Everything about her seemed designed to be forgettable. Her name was, and she was 53 years old. She had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. Every step she took, every word she would say, had been planned and rehearsed countless times. "High Chancellor," said, bowing respectfully, "thank you for granting me an audience. I am honored to stand before the Galactic Council." Waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Yes, yes, get on with it. What do you want?" "Humanity seeks membership in the Council. We wish to establish trade agreements with other species. We want to learn from the great civilizations of the galaxy. We offer our friendship and cooperation." The other council members, representatives from 40 different species, watched in silence. Most of them were vassals of the Dominion, forced to attend these meetings and vote however commanded. A few of them looked at with pity. They knew what was coming. "Friendship," repeated, as if the word amused him. "And what do you offer in return for our protection?" "Our gratitude, High Chancellor, and our willingness to contribute to the peaceful development of the galaxy." Leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. "Gratitude does not fuel warships, Ambassador. How large is your fleet?" 37 vessels, High Chancellor. Cargo ships mostly. A few mining vessels, some agricultural transports. 37 vessels. Looked around the room, making sure everyone appreciated the joke. "We have 300 dreadnoughts guarding this station alone. Your entire fleet could not scratch the paint on one of our warships." "We are not a military people," said. "We prefer peaceful pursuits." Obviously, stood up and walked toward her slowly. He was twice her height and he used his size to intimidate her. "Here is how this will work, human. You will pay tribute like everyone else. 40% of your gross planetary production. You will submit to regular military inspections. You will follow our laws without question. In return, we will allow you to exist." Nodded. "Those terms are acceptable, High Chancellor." "They had better be." Returned to his throne. "You may go and tell your people that the Dominion is watching them. We do not tolerate disobedience." "Of course, High Chancellor. Humanity is grateful for your generosity." Bowed again and left the throne room. As she walked through the corridors of the council station, she kept her expression humble and nervous. Other aliens passed her, barely giving her a second glance. She was just another representative of a weak species, not worth noticing. When she reached her ship, a small vessel that looked decades out of date, she sealed the door behind her and activated a secure communication channel. "This is," she said. "Phase 1 is complete. They accepted our terms. They suspect nothing." 300 light-years away, in a hidden base beneath the frozen surface of Triton, Admiral Drake received her message. "Excellent work," he replied. "Maintain your cover, keep playing the fool. When the time comes, they will never see us coming." Was 61 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face lined by decades of stress. He had never seen Earth's sun. He had never walked on an open plain or breathed natural air. Like thousands of other humans, he had spent his entire life underground, working on a project so secret that most of humanity did not know it existed. The base around him stretched for miles in every direction. It was carved from solid ice and reinforced with materials that the rest of the galaxy had never seen. Vast construction bays held the components of ships so large that they imagination. Power generators the size of cities hummed with energy. Factories produced weapons that could crack planets in half. This was Project Leviathan. Walked through the corridors, nodding to workers as he passed. Everyone knew him. Everyone trusted him. He had led this project for 20 years and he would lead it until the end. He reached the main control room, where his second-in-command waited. Commander Wells was younger than barely 40, but she had proven herself to be one of the most brilliant tactical minds in human history. She had designed the weapons systems that made the Leviathans so deadly. "Status report," said. Pulled up a holographic display. 7 massive shapes appeared, rotating slowly in the air between them. Each one was roughly spherical, 2,000 miles in diameter. They were not ships in any normal sense. They were artificial worlds, hollow spheres of armor housing populations of millions. "All 7 vessels are 98% complete," said. "Final weapons integration will be finished within the month. Crew training is on schedule. We are ready to proceed to the next phase." Studied the display carefully. They sent another inspection team last week. What did they find? Exactly what we wanted them to find. Cargo vessels, mining operations, agricultural stations. They spent 3 days searching our public facilities and found nothing suspicious. Their report described humanity as a harmless primitive species with no military capability. Good allowed himself a small smile. 200 years of work, 200 years of hiding, and they still have no idea what we have built. The deception had begun before was born. When humanity first detected the Dominion's expansion toward Sol, they had realized they faced an impossible choice. They could reveal themselves and hope for mercy, but the Dominion showed mercy to no one. They could fight with their existing technology, but they would be crushed within hours. Or they could hide. They chose to hide everything. Human civilization split into 2 parts. The public face was designed to look weak and harmless. Simple ships, primitive technology, a species barely capable of reaching their nearest neighbors. This was what the Dominion saw. This was what their inspectors examined. This was what their analysts studied. Behind that facade, hidden in the depths of gas giants and the cores of asteroids, humanity built something entirely different. They developed technologies that the galaxy had never imagined. They constructed shipyards in places that no one thought to look. They trained crews in absolute secrecy. And they waited. "How long until the Dominion moves against the?" asked. His expression darkened. "Intelligence suggests 3 months. The refuse to increase their tribute payments has decided to make an example of them." They were one of the few species in the galaxy that genuinely admired. They were artists and philosophers, creators of beautiful things that had no military value whatsoever. They had never attacked anyone. They had never even developed weapons. They were everything that the Dominion was not, and was going to destroy them. "We cannot save them," said quietly. "If we reveal ourselves now, before the Leviathans are ready, we will be destroyed along with them. I know. His voice was steady but could see the anger in her eyes. But we can make sure their deaths are not meaningless. When we strike, we will strike hard. The Dominion will never threaten anyone again. Nodded. Begin the final phase of preparation. When the Leviathans are ready, we move immediately. I want every crew at their stations, every weapon online, every system tested, and there will be no second chances. Understood, Admiral. Left to carry out his orders, and stood alone in the control room, staring at the holographic display. 7 worlds of metal and fire, waiting in the darkness for their moment to shine. Soon, he whispered to himself, very soon. Across the galaxy, life continued as normal. Trade ships moved between worlds. Tribute payments flowed toward Prime. Alien species lived their lives under the watchful eyes of the Dominion, never daring to dream of freedom. Attended council meetings and played her role perfectly. She smiled when insulted. She apologized when blamed for things she had not done. She accepted every demand with humble grace. The other ambassadors barely noticed her. She was beneath their attention. But noticed everything. She watched the military commanders as they discussed their plans. She listened to their conversations about troop movements and fleet deployments. She recorded every piece of information that might be useful. One evening, she found herself at a diplomatic reception, surrounded by aliens who considered her species to be nothing more than clever animals. An officer approached her, his scales shimmering with the confidence of a predator who had never known fear. Ambassador, he said, I am told your species has a gift for creating art, music specifically. Smiled politely. We do enjoy music, yes. Perhaps you could perform something for us. It would be amusing to hear what passes for culture among your people. Smile never wavered. I would be honored. She walked to the center of the room, where a musical instrument had been set up for entertainment. It was a piano, brought from Earth specifically for moments like this. She sat down, arranged her hands on the keys, and began to play. The music was soft at first, a simple melody that seemed almost childish. The aliens in the room smirked at each other, pleased to have their assumptions confirmed. Human music was primitive, just like everything else about them. Then the melody began to change. It grew more complex, weaving together themes and variations that seemed impossible for human fingers to produce. The rhythm shifted, building toward something powerful and moving. The notes rang through the room like a voice crying out against injustice. When finished, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then the officer laughed nervously. Very impressive for a primitive species. You have hidden talents, Ambassador. You have no idea, thought. But what she said was, thank you. Music is one of the few things we do well. She returned to her place among the other ambassadors, and the reception continued as if nothing had happened. But a few of the aliens looked at her differently now. They had seen something they had not expected, a hint of depth behind the humble facade. Hoped they would forget it quickly. Her performance had been a risk, a momentary lapse in her role as the harmless human. She could not afford to draw attention, not now when they were so close. 3 months later, exactly as had predicted, the fleet moved against the. The attack was not a battle, it was an execution. 300 dreadnoughts dropped out of hyperspace above Prime. The planet had no military defenses. Its orbital stations were research facilities and art galleries, not weapons platforms. The had believed that beauty and knowledge were more valuable than warships. They had been wrong. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. Plasma cannons scorched the surface. Nuclear missiles vaporized cities. Kinetic bombardments cracked continental plates. By the time the fleet finished its work, Prime was a burning wasteland. 8 billion died in a single day. The survivors, perhaps 1 million scattered across distant colonies, sent desperate pleas for help to every species in the galaxy. They begged for mercy. They offered anything in exchange for protection. They promised to pay whatever tribute the Dominion demanded. No one responded. The Galactic Council held an emergency session to discuss the massacre. High Chancellor addressed the assembled representatives with a smile on his face. "They chose to defy the Dominion," he said. "They refused to pay their fair share. They thought themselves above the law. Now they have learned the truth. No one is above the Dominion. No one escapes our justice." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I hope this serves as a lesson to other species who might be considering rebellion. Look at your neighbor, the human ambassador. Her people pay their tribute on time. They follow our rules without complaint. They understand their place in the galaxy. I suggest you all follow their example." Sat in her place, her face showing nothing but humble agreement. Inside, she was screaming. After the session ended, she returned to her ship and activated the secure channel. She said, her voice shaking with suppressed fury, "They killed them all, 8 billion people, children, artists, philosophers. They murdered an entire civilization because they would not pay enough money." "I know," his voice was heavy with grief. "We watched it happen. We could not intervene without revealing ourselves." "How much longer?" "The Leviathans are ready. Final tests are complete. We can move within the week." Closed her eyes. "Make it sooner. I cannot play this role much longer. Every time I smile at these monsters, I want to tear out their throats." 3 days promised. "In 3 days we end this." The final preparations were frantic but precise. Every crew member took their position. Every weapon was tested one last time. Every system was stood on the bridge of the Defiance, the flagship of the Leviathan fleet. The ship around him was vast beyond comprehension. Its corridors stretched for hundreds of miles. Its crew numbered 3 million. Its weapons could crack planets in half. And it had been built entirely in secret, hidden from the most advanced surveillance systems in the galaxy. "All vessels report ready," said. "Hyperspace coordinates are locked. We are awaiting your command." Looked around the bridge at the men and women who had dedicated their lives to this moment. Most of them had never seen the sun. They had grown up in underground bases, trained from birth to serve on ships that they hoped would never need to fight. Now that hope was gone. War was coming, and they were ready. "Open a channel to all vessels," ordered. The communication link activated. "This is Admiral Drake to all Leviathan crews. For 200 years, humanity has hidden in the shadows. We have watched the Dominion enslave and murder innocent species. We have remained silent while billions died. That silence ends today." He paused, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. "What we do in the next few hours will determine the fate of the galaxy. We are not conquerors. We do not seek to replace one tyrant with another. We fight for freedom. We fight for justice. We fight for every species that has ever suffered under the Dominion's rule." Straightened, his voice hardening with resolve. "All vessels engage hyperspace drives. Target, Prime. Let us show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of." 7 ships, each the size of a moon, vanished into hyperspace. The galaxy would never be the same. The journey to Prime took less than an hour. Hyperspace folded space itself, allowing the Leviathans to cross hundreds of light years in moments. It was technology that the Dominion had never imagined, developed in secret by human scientists who had spent their lives pursuing a single goal. Spent the journey in his command chair, reviewing tactical data. Prime was the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. 300 orbital fortresses surrounded it, each one armed with weapons capable of destroying continents. 500 dreadnoughts patrolled its space. Planetary shields protected every major city. Any normal fleet would have been annihilated before getting within range. The Leviathans were not normal. "Approaching exit point," announced. "All weapon systems are online, shields at maximum, crew is at battle stations." "Sound the alert," ordered. "All hands prepare for combat." Klaxons echoed through the vast corridors of the Defiance. Millions of crew members moved to their assigned positions, their training kicking in automatically. Fighter pilots climbed into their craft. Gunners took their stations at weapons platforms. Medical teams prepared for casualties. "Exiting hyperspace in 30 seconds," said. 20, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Defiance emerged from hyperspace and got his first look at Prime. The planet was beautiful, in a harsh way. Dark continents surrounded by purple oceans. Massive cities sprawling across the surface like metal tumors. Orbital platforms glittering in the light of the local sun. And ships, hundreds of ships, scrambling to respond to the sudden arrival of something impossible. "They have detected us," said. "The defensive fleet is moving to intercept." "Let them come," activated the broadcast system. "Open a channel to the planet, all frequencies." His face appeared on every screen in the system. In throne rooms and military bases, in homes and factories, every creature on the planet saw the same image. A human male, gray-haired and calm, sitting in a command chair on a ship that should not exist. "High Chancellor," said, "I am Admiral Drake of the United Earth Fleet. 3 months ago, you destroyed the civilization. 8 billion innocent beings murdered because they would not bow to your demands. Today, you answer for that crime." On the surface of Prime, stood in his throne room, staring at the screen in disbelief. His scales had gone pale with shock. His claws gripped the arms of his throne so tightly that the metal bent. "This is impossible," he whispered. "The humans have cargo ships, mining vessels, they have nothing." Continued as if he could hear the protest. "For 200 years we have hidden from you. We showed you what we wanted you to see. Primitive ships, harmless technology, a species too weak to threaten anyone. You believed us because you could not imagine that something small could become something great." The Leviathans spread out, taking positions around the planet. 7 moon-sized vessels, surrounding Prime like the points of a compass. Their weapons ports began to open, revealing focusing arrays that spanned dozens of miles. "You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally," said. "Release all prisoners. Disband your military. Transfer authority to the Galactic Council. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what our weapons can do, and when we are finished, Prime will look exactly like Prime." The broadcast ended and exploded into action. "Destroy them," he screamed at his admirals. "Send every ship we have, crush these insects." Admiral hesitated. "High Chancellor, those vessels are the size of moons. Our sensors cannot even penetrate their shields. We do not know what weapons they carry." "I do not care. Attack, attack now." The fleet responded to his commands. 500 dreadnoughts, each 1 kilometer long, surged toward the nearest Leviathan. The Resolute, commanded by Admiral Grace Palmer, hung motionless in space as the enemy approached. "Enemy fleet is within weapons range," Grace's tactical officer reported. "They are charging their main batteries." Grace studied the tactical display calmly. "Let them fire first. I want to see what they have." The fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts, nuclear missiles, kinetic rounds, every weapon in their arsenal launched toward the Resolute in a storm of destruction that would have reduced a normal planet to rubble. The Resolute's shields absorbed everything without fluctuation. "Damage report," Grace said. "Negligible, Admiral. Shield strength remains at 99.8%. Grace smiled. "My turn, all batteries fire at will." The Resolute opened up with its primary weapons. Graviton beams, each one capable of collapsing the atomic structure of any material, lanced out toward the fleet. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before simply ceased to exist. Their molecules scattered into expanding clouds of elementary particles. The first wave of the attack died in less than 30 seconds. Watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The enemy fleet was already falling back, their commanders realizing they faced something beyond their ability to fight. The orbital fortresses were next. All vessels target the defensive platforms, ordered. Leave civilian areas unharmed. We are here to defeat the military, not to murder innocents. The Leviathans moved with a grace that seemed impossible for objects so large. Their hyperspace drives allowed micro-jumps of incredible precision, appearing behind enemy formations and disappearing before counterattacks could coordinate. Their weapons reached across millions of kilometers, striking targets that they had considered impregnable. One by one, the orbital fortresses fell. Defensive cannons that could crack continents were silenced. Shield generators that had protected the planet for centuries were destroyed. Within 2 hours, Prime lay exposed and defenseless. Activated the broadcast system again. High Chancellor, your military is destroyed. Your defenses are gone. I repeat my offer. Surrender now and your people will be spared. Continue to resist and you will share the fate of the... For a long moment, there was no response. Then a transmission came from the surface. It was not words. It was the firing of a planetary defense cannon, a massive beam of energy that shot toward the Defiance with enough power to destroy a small moon. The Defiance's shields absorbed the beam without effort. He has made his choice, said quietly. Nodded, move us into position above the palace complex. Prepare the precision strike weapon. The Defiance glided forward, taking position directly above's throne room. A single weapons port opened on its surface, revealing a focusing array that spanned 50 miles. Target lock confirmed, reported, ready to fire on your command. Hesitated. This was the moment everything had been building toward. 200 years of preparation, generations of sacrifice, countless lives dedicated to a single purpose. All of it came down to this instant. Fire, he said. A beam of force struck the palace, annihilating it completely. His admirals, his entire government ceased to exist in less than a second. The surrounding city was untouched. Only the palace and its occupants were destroyed. The war was over. In the hours that followed, the military collapsed. Without their leadership, without their defensive systems, they had no ability to resist. Ships surrendered by the dozens. Ground forces laid down their weapons. Governors on distant worlds broadcast messages of submission. Watched it all from his command chair, feeling strangely empty. He had expected to feel triumph or at least satisfaction. Instead, he felt only exhaustion. Admiral said gently, "You should rest, we have won. The Dominion is finished." "Is it?" Looked at the tactical display, still showing the wreckage of the fleet. "We have destroyed one tyrant, but we have also revealed ourselves. The galaxy knows what we are capable of now. They will fear us. They will respect us." Fear and respect are not the same thing, stood up slowly. We have power that no species has ever possessed. 7 ships that could conquer the galaxy if we chose. That power is a responsibility, not a privilege. We must be very careful how we use it. Nodded, what are your orders? Contact Ambassador. Tell her to convene an emergency session of the Galactic Council. We need to establish a new order before someone else tries to fill the void we have created. And the Leviathans looked out the viewport at the stars. They returned to their bases. We will keep them hidden, ready to defend the peace we have won. But we will not use them to threaten or intimidate. We will not become what we destroyed. The message was sent, and across the galaxy, species that had lived in fear for centuries began to hope for the first time. 3 days later stood before the Galactic Council, but this time she did not stand at the petitioner's podium. She stood at the center of the chamber where the High Chancellor had once held court. The representatives watched her with a mixture of awe and terror. They had seen what human weapons could do. They had watched a fleet that should have been invincible destroyed in minutes. They did not know what to expect. Humanity does not seek dominion over this galaxy, announced. Her voice was strong and clear, nothing like the humble whisper she had used for 15 years. We built our fleet to end the threat, nothing more. We will not replace one empire with another. Then what do you want? Asked the representative, one of the few survivors of her species. Her voice trembled with emotion. Smiled gently. We want to help you rebuild. We want to share our technology with species who will use it peacefully. We want to create a true council, one where every voice matters equally. And your weapons will be used to defend the peace, not to enforce our will. The Leviathans will patrol the borders against external threats. They will respond to genuine emergencies, but they will never be used to conquer or subjugate. The representatives looked at each other uncertainly. The concept of power without domination was foreign to them. The Dominion had taught them that strength existed only to be imposed on the weak. "How can we trust you?" asked another representative. "You hid your true nature for 200 years. You deceived everyone. How do we know you are not deceiving us now?" Nodded. "That is a fair question. The answer is that you cannot trust our words. You can only trust our actions. Watch what we do, not what we say. Judge us by our deeds, not our promises. If we betray the principles we have spoken, then you will know we are no better than the. And if we judge you unworthy." Smile faded. "Then we will deserve whatever response you deem appropriate. We do not claim to be perfect. We have made mistakes and we will make more. But we believe that freedom is better than tyranny. We believe that cooperation is better than domination. We believe that every species has the right to determine its own destiny." She paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of beings from dozens of different worlds. "We have given you a gift today. Not our technology, not our protection, but something more valuable. We have given you the chance to build a better galaxy. What you do with that chance is up to you." The vote was held immediately. By unanimous decision, the Galactic Council reformed under new principles. Tribute payments were abolished. Military inspections were ended. Every species was granted equal representation. And humanity was given a permanent seat but no special authority. They would be one voice among many, nothing more. Received the news on the bridge of the Defiance, still orbiting Prime. "They accepted our terms," reported. "The Council has reformed. The Dominion is officially dissolved." "Good," turned away from the viewport. "Begin withdrawal procedures. The Leviathans return to their bases. Maintain a minimal presence here until a new government can be established." "What about the people?" Considered the question carefully. They were not evil by nature. They had been shaped by centuries of militaristic culture, taught from birth that conquest was the only path to greatness. Under different circumstances, they might have been allies instead of enemies. "Help them," he said finally. "Send humanitarian aid. Assist with reconstruction. Show them that there is another way to live. Some of them will hate us for what we did." "I know, but hatred can fade over time. The only way to break the cycle of violence is to treat our former enemies with compassion. If we cannot do that, then we are no better than they were." Nodded and left to carry out his orders. Sat alone in his command chair, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were waking up to a galaxy transformed. They would face new challenges and new dangers. They would make mistakes and suffer setbacks. But for the first time in 300 years, they would face those challenges as free beings. That was worth everything humanity had sacrificed. 1 year later, Drake stood on the surface of the rebuilt Prime. The planet was no longer a wasteland. New cities were rising from the ashes. Forests were being replanted. Life was returning to a world that had been left for dead. Memorial gardens stretched to the horizon around him. Each flower represented one of the 8 billion who had died in the massacre. It was a beautiful place, peaceful and sad at the same time. "They would have liked this," said a voice beside him. turned to find Ambassador Lyra, the representative, standing at his side. She was small and fragile-looking, with large dark eyes that held the weight of unimaginable loss. "I hope so," said. "We should have acted sooner. If we had revealed ourselves earlier, we might have saved them. Or you might have been destroyed and no one would have been saved at all." Lyra shook her head slowly. "You cannot torture yourself with what might have been. You did what you could with the knowledge you had. That is all anyone can do. Tell that to the 8 billion who died. They would understand. They were philosophers, remember. They knew that the universe does not always give us good choices. Sometimes we can only choose between bad options and worse ones." Looked out across the memorial gardens. Families were walking among the flowers, teaching their children about those who had been lost. Life was continuing, despite everything. "What will you do now?" he asked. "Rebuild, remember, hope." Lyra managed a small smile. "That is what my people have always done. We are artists and dreamers. We find beauty in darkness and hope in despair. They tried to destroy us, but they only destroyed our bodies. Our spirit remains. I envy you that spirit. You have it too, Admiral. You just express it differently." Lyra gestured at the sky, where human ships were visible in orbit. "You built wonders in the darkness. You waited for centuries without losing faith. You struck at the heart of tyranny and then chose mercy over vengeance. That takes a kind of spirit that my people understand very well." Said nothing. He was not sure he agreed with her assessment, but he appreciated the kindness. "What will happen to your fleet?" Lyra asked. "The Leviathans are being converted to exploration vessels. Their weapons are being removed, replaced with scientific equipment. We do not need instruments of war anymore. Some would say you should keep them armed. There may be other threats out there." "There may be, but if we keep our weapons, we will eventually use them. Power corrupts, Ambassador. The only way to avoid becoming what we destroyed is to give up the tools of destruction." Lyra nodded slowly. "You are wiser than you know, Admiral. They were powerful, but they never understood that true strength comes from restraint, not violence. You do understand. That is why you will succeed where they failed." Hope she was right. The years that followed were difficult but hopeful. The galaxy struggled to adjust to its new freedom. Species that had lived under tyranny for centuries had to learn how to govern themselves. Old grudges resurfaced. New conflicts emerged. But the darkness did not return. Humanity helped where it could and stepped back when it was not needed. The Leviathans explored distant regions of space, making discoveries that expanded the boundaries of knowledge. New species were contacted. New civilizations welcomed into the growing community of worlds. And throughout it all, the memorial gardens on Prime continued to grow. Every year, new flowers were planted. Every year, new visitors came to pay their respects. The dead were not forgotten. Their sacrifice had meaning. Drake lived to see his 78th birthday. He had retired from active service, passing command of the exploration fleet to a new generation of officers. He spent his final years on Earth, walking under the open sky and breathing natural air for the first time in his life. It was strange after so many decades underground. The sun seemed too bright. The wind felt too strong, but he learned to appreciate it. He learned to love the world his ancestors had left behind. On his last day, surrounded by his family and friends, looked up at the stars through the window of his room. "We did it," he whispered. "We actually did it." His daughter held his hand gently. "You changed the galaxy, Dad. You gave everyone a chance at freedom." "Not me, all of us. Every person who worked on the project, every soldier who served on the ships, every spy who gathered information, every diplomat who played their role," smiled weakly. "I was just the one lucky enough to give the orders. History will remember you. History will remember all of us, the species that hid in the shadows and emerged to save the galaxy, the people who built wonders in secret and used them for good." Eyes began to close. That is a legacy worth dying for. He passed peacefully, with the stars shining above him. The funeral was attended by representatives from every species in the galaxy. Humans and dozens of others all gathered to honor the man who had changed everything. They spoke of his courage, his wisdom, his restraint. They spoke of the sacrifices he had made and the victories he had won. But the words that were carved on his memorial said it best. He showed us that power does not have to corrupt, that strength can serve justice, that the greatest victory is the one that prevents future wars. Admiral Drake, hero of humanity, friend of the galaxy. And beneath those words, in smaller letters, they never saw us coming, but when we arrived, we came as liberators, not conquerors. May future generations remember that lesson. The children who visited his memorial often asked their parents what the words meant, and their parents would tell them the story of how humanity hid in the shadows, built weapons of unimaginable power, and used them to set the galaxy free. It was, they said, the most human thing imaginable. The end.